Okay, you're live.
Good evening. It is 6:04, and I would like to call to order tonight this special meeting of the Millwood City Council. As it is a special meeting, the agenda is set, and no action can be taken on the agenda. So tonight, we have with us our Planning Commission members, we have our Historic Preservation Commission members, and we have our Beautification and Tree Board members with us tonight. So as a joint meeting of basically the council and every commission we have, we'll ask Christina to take the role first of the council, and then the roles of the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation, and Tree Board to call those meetings to order, as well as this is also a special meeting for each one of those groups. So Christina, take it away.
Mayor Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember BC. Councilmember Kohler.
Here.
Councilmember Van Hees.
Here.
Councilmember Sander.
Present.
Councilmember Stravens.
Present.
Calling to order the special meeting of the Millwood Planning Commission, Commissioner Ankeny.
Here.
Commissioner Molitor.
Here.
Commissioner BC.
Here.
Commissioner Rickard.
Here.
Commissioner Wu. Calling to order the special meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission, Commissioner Major.
Here.
Commissioner Oakes.
Here.
Commissioner St. Clair.
Here.
Commissioner Kirsten.
Here.
Commissioner Brannan. Calling to order the special meeting of the Millwood Beautification and Tree Board, Debbie Lehinger.
Here.
Vicky Nacarado.
Here.
Charlie Peterson.
Here.
Thank you.
So I would like to say thank you for everyone from all of our boards and commissions for attending tonight. It's good to see everyone, and we appreciate the opportunity for everyone to get together in the same room. So at this time, I would like to, we did this at the last meeting, but I would like to recognize Paul Allen, who is, this will be Paul's last meeting, I think, with anyone here. And so with his impending retirement, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Paul, from the city and from everyone for your multiple years of service. And your work and dedication to Millwood is second to none. I was very lucky to have you as a Public Works Director. You made being mayor as easy as it could be with respect to those, and you will be very much missed. So thank you. And so Mr. Allen's retirement party is tomorrow at?
From 2 to 5 at the Millwood Masonic Temple.
So anyone who has had any dealings with Mr. Allen, and I would imagine that those dealings would only be good, we would invite you to say your fond farewells to him as an employee of the city of Millwood. And so I would like Paul one last time to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Thank you, Paul.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight, we have public comments, but we have no action items or any items on tonight's agenda for final action, but I will ask the clerk if we have received any comments for tonight's agenda, either by mail, by electronic mail, or directly submitted to the city.
We have not.
Okay, thank you very much. So, our first presentation tonight is from Mr. Jim Flott from Community Forestry Consultants, our tree inventory and management plan. Mr. Flott, thank you very much for attending.
Thanks for the invite. Okay, so this is a project that was as a result of a grant that you all received from the Washington Department of Natural Resources Urban and Community Forestry Program. So I was hired to conduct an inventory of all the trees in the public right-of-way. Nothing on private property. So that's the parks, the street trees, and the trail system here in Millwood. And from there, We take that as the source of information that we build the database from, and then also build a management plan that addresses all the issues in the urban forestry area in Millwood. So the plan is complete. I sent it off just this afternoon after getting some final information from Paul and Daniel. And they will be distributing that on the usual city websites so you can have access to review that. There'll be a review period where you can look at it, make comments, whatever you want to do with it. If you're tired at night, can't sleep, it's a good thing to go through. Unless you're a real tree geek. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit some of the highlights. It's 90-plus pages long, so I can't go through everything, but we will talk a few things here. So, okay, let's see if we can get this to advance. There we go. So, if you were to answer this question, there's one word that solves all these questions, okay? Might be a little small print for those in the back, my tired eyes. So, extend the life of city streets by 10 to 15 years. Help downtown businesses improve the bottom line. Reduce stormwater runoff and improve water quality. Increase property values, which equates to tax bases in the community. Receive a $3 return in benefits for every dollar invested. Reduce carbon dioxide and other pollutants. Reduce erosion, wind speed, and conserve energy. Reduce crime and violence and vandalism and make communities safer. Christina, I think you actually put up the old one. There's one missing out here, I know. The other thing, that's all right, well, it's good enough, we'll work through it. So trees have value, all right? So apart from the value on the property upon which they grow, they provide what we refer to as ecosystem services in the industry, okay? This isn't about timber value. It's completely different in how we assess trees that are landscape trees and trees as part of the urban forestry or community forestry. So let's look at a couple of these benefits here. So architectural. These are space articulators. They screen objectionable views. They abate noise, privacy control. Everybody puts up landscape barriers, much nicer than a fence. Engineering cools your house. It actually controls traffic. It can slow traffic down on streets that are tree lined. Erosion control, noise abatement, affects air quality. Those of you that have been around some of the fires and stuff, air quality is directly related to the trees. Water quality, stormwater abatement, all these are benefits, engineering benefits that trees provide to communities. Aesthetic, of course, we all look at trees from the beauty that they provide, softening the architecture on houses, framing landscapes, the background, decorative walls, and now landscape walls are coming up into play all across the country and the world, actually. Trees enhance property values. They increase a city's infrastructure value. They reduce heating and cooling costs and enhance sociability, environmental issues as well. So all these benefits are discussed in great length in the plan. Property benefits, okay? Market prices, these are studies that have been around for a long time, both in my industry, the arboriculture, urban forestry, and also real estate appraisers as well. They increase the value of properties, tree-lined, tree planted on properties, whether it's private or public, increase the value of the property, which directly equates to the tax base. So, which one's the pointer on this one, or does it have a pointer?
It doesn't work on the TV.
Okay, all right. Well, those of you who've been around since the 1900s, the top photo on the left, that is Dalton Avenue around 1920. And there it is right there today. So the early settlers of Millwood had the foresight to plant trees that you are enjoying now on Dalton Avenue. Do you want the next generation to enjoy those? That's your legacy. You can either leave them like this, or they could be lost. The way they get lost is don't take care of your trees, just like any other city asset. So that's what we're trying to do, is preserve existing trees, plant new trees where we have available planting sites. In the inventory, we did about 900 street, park, and trail trees. Of those, 550 or so need work, serious work in some cases, okay? 8% of those trees are requiring removal because they're too far gone. There isn't anything we can do with them. They either have extensive decay or they have splits in them. They have defects that are not repairable. There's limited species diversity. Diversity is a big issue in city streets, trees, and urban areas. Unfortunately, Millwood does not have a lot of diversity in its population. It's over 50% maples. So some of you may have heard of Dutch elm disease, some of you may have heard of chestnut blight, some of you may have heard of emerald ash borer, which is wreaking havoc right now all across the country and taking out all the ash species. So think of something that might come into this country, typically an invasive that likes maple trees. You're going to lose 50% of your trees overnight. So diversity is what we're looking for. The planting list for new trees doesn't start and end with M. So there's limited or poor arboriculture practices. The plan really approaches on how to improve that, which means who works on the public trees. Well, not an electrician, not the guy driving down the road with a pickup and a chainsaw. These are qualified, certified arborists that we expect to work on our public trees because they understand how trees grow and how to maintain them. So you wouldn't hire me to do the electrical work in your house. I'm not an electrician, okay? Why would you hire someone that doesn't know anything about trees to take care of them? The other main issue, if you've walked down Dalton or Liberty, you've seen all the lifted sidewalks. Big issue here to deal with, tree sidewalk conflicts. And there are ways to work around those and not damage those historic red oak trees and maples on both of those streets. The idea is to retain those. Sidewalks can be moved, trees can't. All right, so knowing this much information about what's going on out there in the streets and the parks and the trails and the benefits that trees provide, we can put dollar values on those trees. Anybody have any ideas what those 900 trees might be worth? Those of you in the tree committee already know the answer. Ken, you probably might know the answer too. You'll be in the ballpark.
2 million.
You're low.
10 million.
You're getting high. 5.9 million. And that's because they are older trees. You can see the graph there. They're older trees, but they're also in fair condition, which is kind of in the middle of the road. If we had trees that were in good and excellent condition, that number would bump up quite a bit. So it's based on the condition of the trees, the species of the trees, and some of the other factors that we use in the industry to determine the values. Okay, this is a court-tested, well-documented process of putting values on landscape trees. Species, as I mentioned already, most of the population on the streets is in the genus that includes maple, okay? Specifically, you have Norway maples, that's the biggest number, but you also have red maples, you also have sycamore maples, there's box elders is actually a maple, so you've got a lot of other types of maples, but if you look at the whole genus of maples, it's over 52%. And the rest are in there. Okay, so diameter, the other thing going on is you have a lot of trees that are at an age where they're starting to mature. And just like us, we mature, we start to decline, and eventually we do die. Well, the same thing happens with another biological organism. So you have a lot of trees that are moving towards the old age, and not much has been planted. In fact, most of what's been planted there, you see that blue column on the left there, 1 to 3 inches, most of those are the new trees along the trails. Not along the streets or in the parks. Most of that's along the trails. There's a lot of new planting sites out in the city where you can plant new trees. Condition ratings, as I said, see most of the trees are in fair condition, fair number in good, but hardly any in the excellent category. And you've got some that are in the poor, very poor and dead, which is not good. Those are most of the removals that we talked about earlier. Risk trees, you do have some trees here. There's some that are marked for removal. They have serious defects that warrant removal. They have issues with them that could cause them to fail without weather issues. Maintenance, as I said, the reason that number is 88% because some of those trees require multiple types of pruning on them. We actually categorize what kind of pruning we're going to do on a tree, and if a tree needs multiple types of pruning, then that amps up the number. So the actual number of trees that need work is about 550, 560, but some of them require multiple types of maintenance on them. So that's why that figure is a little bit higher. So look, there's exactly one reason what we have in some of the trees. That is a large dead branch in that tree that's been dead for a long time because the bark has been shed off of it and the wood is being bleached on it. So it's been dead hanging up there for quite a while. So a lot of maintenance needs for every tree. So we know how much it costs to prune a tree. We've got hard numbers on this from actual bids from previous work that's been done in Millwood by some of our tree companies that are sanctioned to do this kind of work, that have the credentials to do this kind of work, okay? So average pruning costs for some of the smaller trees around $600. Removal costs could run anywhere from $1,500 all the way up to $3,000 plus, depending upon where the tree is located and how difficult it is to remove. So you can crunch the numbers. If I got 550 trees to prune times an average of 600, that's over $500,000 worth of pruning. On the removals, as I said, there's about 70, that's $140,000 worth of removals. So money is what it all comes down to. And we're not saying you have to do all this at once. There's a plan to deal with this. So it relates to existing staff levels. This is covered all in the plan, kind of staffing that we need, resources that you need to run the program. The bottom line is, though, if you guys want to keep these trees in healthy condition for the next generation, you're going to have to spend the money. That doesn't mean all at once. You can't fix all the potholes at once, can't fix all the other infrastructure items at once. You budget and build money into maintaining the infrastructure in the city. So they require ongoing care because this is a city asset, just like everything else. The good thing about trees, though, compared to other city assets, though, as they age, they become more valuable if they are taken care of. That appraisal dollar formula increases as trees get bigger, as long as they're taken care of. So the recommendations, adopt and implement the plan. That plan, you were given that money to start a program here. That's what that money was given to you by DNR, is to develop your program. And if you want to continue to get grants from them, they are going to look and see what you did once this plan has been completed. Increase staff and program resources, develop a risk management program, implement a cyclical pruning program, diversify the tree planting program, mitigate infrastructure conflicts. So it's not just tree sidewalks, there's power line conflicts, things like that. Revise the tree ordinance to reflect what's in the urban forestry management plan. And develop and coordinate an education program for the community so they understand all about everything that I just talked about. Why we need to keep trees, why we need to maintain them, the benefits associated with them. And all this information, the city, Daniel, Paul has this on a computerized tree inventory database that they can keep track of everything going on with all the trees in the public right-of-way. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Flott? From anyone out there? From the council?
That was easy.
So I do want to say thank you very much for coming in and kicking this off. I want to thank Daniel Hecox as well, who came in and helped and is kind of the city's tree point person right now. I'll just say for everyone out here who is in some ways involved in Millwood city government, these are the types of programs that we have not contemplated in the past. We've not thought about actual care and maintenance of trees as preservation of a city asset. And so bottom line, what Mr. Flott was saying is that is very true. Taking care of something like this costs money. And so when folks may come to you or may say, why does the city take their 1% for property tax values? Why do we take our general increase? It's because programs like this take money. Costs go up from a regular basis in the city. Our current funds pay for what we have right now because of inflation, because of material costs going up, everything like that. So anytime we are faced with adding a new program, and in this case, something like this is a vital program for the city. We pride ourselves on our trees. We're Tree City, USA. People come from all over to take their pictures in the middle of Dalton. We go out and we plant trees everywhere. People get upset when somebody cuts a tree down, all that sort of stuff. In order for us as a city to manage the trees that are the city's responsibility, we have to fund these things. Nobody here or in any of your groups or anything like that, any of your commission is getting rich off of the 1% tax increases or anything like that we take. But we need those funds to be able to implement programs like this where we can look out over a 5-10-year horizon, implement this plan, and provide for the asset that we need to manage. So this is a great takeaway from something like this, that if you're ever confronted with someone who says, well, you're just taking money because you can. The city never takes money because it can. The city takes money because we find things that need to be preserved or need to be addressed that we have never contemplated before, and it's important for us to address them. So just as sitting here as the mayor, these are the sorts of things that we have to deal with as a city. Folks in the tree board, I appreciate the work you've done. I appreciate you stepping up and really starting to get your hands around this. I can see from an education and outreach perspective, you folks may end up being very busy as we move forward in this, because we're going to start to we're going to implement this, and we're going to have to start to make some inroads with folks and get them excited about not just the city maintaining the street trees or the public trees, but them maintaining their own trees and looking for opportunities to replace those trees that are lost. I'm not faulting anybody for taking down some of those large pines and things like that with those shallow root bases, particularly with some of the weather we've had. But if we're taking some of those down, we should be putting something back. And that's the sort of thing that we have to educate citizens on, educate residents on, things like that. So I would ask one last time, any questions for Mr. Flott on any of this? And Jim, thank you oh, yes, sir.
Just couple closing comments. In the plan, there is a whole section on budget, because that's really critical, as you said, Mayor. The dollars, you can't fix this all at once, and that's not the idea here. But there are ways to tackle this, in small bites that can handle the budget that you have. That's how we work through this whole thing. So, and the last thing is, this has been a fun project for me because it's local. I'm in Spokane. It's nice to see the communities in our area stepping up and doing these kind of things with the city trees. It's been fun working both with Paul and Daniel. They've been great to work with on this project, so it's been a good time. All right, thanks. I appreciate the time. Yes.
So, any of the trees that are in the Avista power line easement, is that considered city inventory, or are those private trees?
Some of those trees are in the Avista power line right away, yeah. And Avista has the authority to prune those trees because by federal standards, they have to maintain line clearance around power lines. And some of the pruning they do doesn't look very well as far as aesthetics, but that's industry standards that they're following as far as how to prune around a utility line. So, yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in this evening. So now we have Adam from Welch Comer Engineers to give us an update on the Argonne Congestion Relief Project. Adam, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you. As Mr. Mayor mentioned, my name's Adam Dorsey. I'm with Welch Comer Engineers. I'm filling in for Matt Gillis, who couldn't be here today. Here to talk about Oregon Road. So why this project? We were funded by the CMAQ program, which is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, to reduce congestion and improve safety. And so I guess how are we going to do that? Our scope of work is to widen the roadway, add a path where we can, a shared use path, add left turn lanes, perform some signal improvements, and some railroad crossing improvements as well. As far as the widening goes, you can see in these images, it's primarily to the east side of Argonne that we're widening, between Frederick and about Liberty. And then we are adding the shared use path north of Empire on the east side. And the intent of the path is to kind of plan for a future connection to the Centennial Trail that will ultimately kind of be moved to the north side of the Spokane River Bridge. And so ultimately when that's done, we think that could be a pretty cool connection. So we're just trying to plan for that. And as far as the crosswalks go, it sounded like the last presentation that Matt gave, there were some questions about crosswalks. So the crosswalk on the south side of Empire will be moved to the south side of the railroad, which will help for kind of mobility for path users on the Millwood Trail. It'll be easier. So this way I guess the path users won't need to cross the railroad twice. And then I guess cross it once, then cross Argonne, then cross it again. So there's a safety aspect there. It is true that the crosswalk on the east side of Argonne at Empire will be going away, and as well as the crossing of the railroad. The railroad they wouldn't let us have that crossing. There's a switch that spurs off to IEP, and they just called it a safety and a maintenance issue. So they wouldn't let us have that. It actually led to a pretty good sized delay because we just really butted heads on that one. But ultimately they have the upper hand, which is frequently the case with the railroad because they've been there forever. So I think there might have been some talk of maybe adding a concrete crosswalk crossing for the trail, maybe even colored crosswalk maybe was talked about. So we can do that. The project does have a funding deficit right now. So assuming we can fund that, we can easily add that to the project. I'll get to the funding deficit a little later. But I think hopefully that answers questions on the crosswalks. As far as the left turn lanes go, let's see. So we'll have a center left turn lane at Frederick to handle those left turns at Frederick. As you know, it's an offset intersection, so it's a little bit tricky. That's why we went with the center left turn lane as opposed to the dedicated turn lanes there. We'll have the southbound left turn lane at onto Empire. Again, the northbound left turn, again, that was kind of a stipulation from the railroad. They just wouldn't let us have that northbound left turn. So we think that it'll be okay. It's pretty low volume movement. We'll have a left turn at Dalton and at Liberty, and so hopefully that'll kind of mitigate that issue, I suppose. As far as the signal improvements, we'll have a new signal at Euclid and Empire. We were going to try to use as much of that signal as possible, but you end up with old equipment and it ends up, you don't save that much money. So we went with just the new signal. We'll have, real quick. So we'll be doing those improvements at Euclid and Empire. maybe the silver lining of not having that crosswalk on the east side of that intersection is it kind of allows us to improve the truck movements on those two corners on the east side. As you guys know, there's IEP trucks coming in and out of there frequently, and so it allows us to help get those guys through without impacting other traffic. So we'll have some signal improvements at Liberty. This will just involve adding new poles to the west of, or excuse me, to the east of where they are today on the east side. The mast arm on the left side of that picture for the, I guess it would be the westbound traffic, that will go away. We just don't need to keep that functionality for IEP. They use that entrance incredibly rarely. I think it's like once in the last 30 years they've used it or something like that. So we'll still have, they didn't want to give up the access completely. We'll have rolled curb there and a gate similar to how it is today. And then we'll have the railroad crossing improvements. So this is what it looks like today. The design, hopefully it'll look like this in 2024. So this is an old aerial image that is on that bottom picture. If you kind of combine those, it might look something like that. You can kind of see where we're tying into that existing path on both sides of the street there. I don't know if that's helpful or not. I thought it might be, but so let's see. I do want to point out one more thing on Euclid, or sorry, on Empire. This signal will have two mast arms. There will be one on the far side, kind of where it is today, and there will be one on the near side, which is somewhat rare. There are a couple of examples of this locally. Generally, you see this type of thing at railroads, and the intent here is just trying to really hammer home that people need to stop on the south side of the tracks so that we're not getting people on the tracks stopped, and obviously that's a safety concern. So let's see, so moving forward, as far as right-of-way acquisition, we've purchased 4 of 5 properties. We're holding out on IEP. I think that they're in condemnation right now. And I heard a rumor that they were close, but you never really know with right-of-way. So
We're still working on it,
we're working on it. Yeah.
at least in terms of getting possession.
Good, okay. Let's see. Just a quick note about the railroad acquisition. It was a little bit tricky. As I mentioned, the railroad they've been here forever. There were actually no documents that showed that the city had an easement through this area. And so the one thing that did work out with the railroad is that they did allow us to kind of clean up that easement without having to purchase it. Because easily they could have said, "Oh no, you owe us 30 grand," but fortunately they didn't let us, or they didn't make us do that. So that was nice of them. Let's see. Getting into the funding, we do have a deficit. As you can see, we're at about $4 million. The current funding we have is about $3 million. And as you can imagine, with everything else that's happened in the world, these costs, just every year that you can't do the project, things just get more and more expensive. That's just kind of the way things have worked out. So I think that we're pursuing funding, and I think that we have a good bead on securing that funding, from what I understand. So I think that we're in good shape for 2024 construction. So the design is complete. It's kind of sitting on the shelf right now. The right-of-way is, like Brian said, we're kind of working through it still. And yeah, we plan on construction in 2024. So I kind of sped through that. I don't do that this often. I don't do this that often. So you have to forgive me. Any questions I can help you with?
So first, I'll point out a couple things before we take questions. First of all, right now, we have a design and we have some funding, but until, and I've stressed these points at the last council meeting, so this might be a rehash for some folks in the audience. We have no project until we have acquired all the right-of-way. So until we are done with acquiring the strip of property from Inland Empire Paper, we have no project. So a 2024 construction date is totally contingent upon us completing condemnation and taking what is called possession and use of that property. So until we have that sewed up, we really don't have a project, and we have no good way of providing any type of timetable. 2024 is the most optimistic frame at this point. We would then have to, once we took possession and use, we would have to then solidify the rest of the funding. We would then have to go to bid. We would then have to review those bids. We'd have to accept those bids, and we'd have to take a construction schedule. So we are still a ways out on, one, having an actual confirmed project, and two, having an actual start date for that project. The second thing I will say is that a number of the intersection issues, particularly at the Argonne and Euclid Empire intersection, are driven by long-standing conversations we have had with Union Pacific. This is an incredibly sensitive intersection to UP. I'm not sure how many people have noticed, but this is their main line to the West Coast from Canada. So all of their Canadian through traffic, anything coming from BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, that is destined for Portland or Seattle, comes right through Millwood. And so because of what is called the at-grade crossing there, and the types of train movements they have there, the types of trains, they have had a long-standing issue with truck traffic extending itself onto that crossing from south to north, so the northbound lanes. They've had issues. That is one of the reasons why we undertook the signalization of Marguerite. They pushed us for a number of years to simply close Marguerite and eliminate vehicle traffic across Marguerite. They have made a number of requests for safety upgrades at Euclid. Not all of them, Euclid Empire, not all of them beneficial to the city or to any of the city partners. That includes the mill. So this project is intended to do a number of things. One is to address the freight mobility and safety issues that we have with Union Pacific's main line running right through the heart of Millwood. Second is to increase the ability for multimodal transportation, which is primarily pedestrian and bikes, to be able to move safely through our corridor and along Argonne. That is the intent primarily of acquiring the width of ground that we are looking to acquire along the Inland Empire side, because the intent is to build a shared use multimodal path for bike and pedestrians that is of the same caliber as the current Millwood Trail. It is also the intent to provide a linkage from our Millwood Trail to the bridge, which would give a connection to the Centennial Trail, to the bridge. And so the intent ultimately of the county is to bring the Centennial Trail down Marengo and bring it down Marengo all the way from where Marengo intersects upriver to the northwest of the upriver Argonne intersection, down to where Marengo hits the trail at Coyote Rocks. And they will build the county is looking at building a hawk signal. Originally they were looking at taking the trail underneath Argonne by bringing it under the bridge area. But it looks like right now what they're more considering is building what's known as a hawk signal, which is a pedestrian activated signal to stop traffic on Argonne so people can safely cross at Marengo and Argonne. But that would give us a linkage to that trail. It would also accomplish one other thing, which is currently City of Spokane has money to build their section of what is known in the area as the Millwood Interurban Trail, which carries a portion of the trail along the river from Spokane Community College at Green Street to basically Fancher Road. We have worked with City of Spokane Valley for City of Spokane Valley to add the portion of the Millwood Interurban Trail, which goes along the south side of the UP tracks, to their 6-year TIP project, their transportation improvement project. So City of Spokane Valley would then build the portion of the trail from Fancher to Vista. And then there would be a complete linkage of a ped bike trail from Green Street to Argonne. And it would basically constitute a southern loop of the Centennial Trail. You would be able to exit the Centennial Trail and the Children of the Sun Trail, where they're building the new bridge and everything as part of the North-South Freeway. You would then be able to come along through the southern part of the trail and then rejoin the Centennial Trail, crossing the river on Argonne, and then rejoin the Centennial Trail. So there are some multimodal path benefits there. We're also looking at attempting to provide some easier turn access for the residents that live on the west side of Millwood by giving some folks some turn pockets to be able to get out of traffic and make a left from Argonne, across Argonne, heading west into Millwood at either Liberty or Dalton or Frederick, find some places where we could get some folks some refuge, some signalization, things like that, so folks could queue up and not have to jump lights or worry about getting oncoming traffic, all that sort of stuff. So this plan, we've worked on this now for how many years, Paul? 6, 7, 8?
Longer than that. Corridor study was a long time ago,
Yeah.
before you did the Argonne project.
You acquired right-of-way from Spokane County in 2008.
So since 2008, we've been working through this project to try and come up with some ways to facilitate pedestrian traffic, to address the railroad's concern, to allow some movement for some vehicle traffic. And is this the best solution? No. Is it a workable solution that provides benefits to our community while respecting the fact that we need to be conscious of what Argonne Road serves to the greater valley, to the urban growth area to the north, to Northwood, to Spokane Valley, to the south? Yeah, because as much as I would advocate that we could take Argonne and turn it into one lane north and one lane south with a big refuge in the middle, I think we would all be under incredible pressure from our surrounding neighbors that would be a big no. Or we would run into some significant issues if we attempted to do that. So making Argonne bigger may seem wider, may seem counterintuitive, but ultimately the goal is to have the opportunity to provide the ped bike refuge, to make Argonne more comfortable for pedestrians. We're going to have landscaping opportunities, we're going to have lighting opportunities, we're going to have some opportunities for some things on the center islands we're creating. So we will have some ability to do some things there that we don't see here in these plans from just general infrastructure, curbs, pipes, roadway, things like that. There will be options for that. There will be opportunities for that. But the idea to give the business, to do the least disturbances to the businesses on the west side of Argonne, to provide opportunity for folks to move into Millwood and the historic area safely, access those businesses there, and to allow pedestrians and bikes to move, not only our own citizens, but those citizens that would use the trail, provide opportunities for folks coming down Liberty to safely cross and join a trail system, provide opportunity for walkers to be segregated from cyclists, things like that, and just give us a little more control over our transportation. So I've made my 10-minute pitch for the Argonne congestion release study. But what I would say is the takeaway from this is until we secure that right of way from IEP, we don't have a project. And until we have that, we can't adequately give timeframes for when this project might actually be accomplished. Once we have that, then it's funding, then it's bid, then it's come up with a date for construction. So Adam I would tip my hat to Adam's optimism, but 2024 is a very optimistic statement in this case. So general questions for Adam on the design or anything like that?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have turn pockets in the center of Argonne between the railroad tracks and Liberty. There's gonna be a turn pocket to turn left onto Dalton, one for Empire, one for Liberty.
Correct.
Are those gonna be just painted on, or are there gonna be actual concrete curves?
So I think what you're asking, so there will be a concrete median.
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, let's see. Let's get back to this one here. So there will be, I might just go up there. So this right here, right there will be a concrete median. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
So that's just south
Okay.
of Liberty.
Well, yeah, it's Dalton, just north of Dalton.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Dalton, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So there's Liberty there, and so there's Dalton, and this will be a concrete median. There wasn't really an opportunity to put a concrete median between Empire and Dalton, just because
Yeah, you've got that crosswalk.
Right, we've got both of those turn lanes that kind of eat up all of that space, and so there wasn't quite enough.
So they'll be just painted on?
They'll just be painted.
No curves?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions? Adam, can I ask you a question? Hang on a second, Dan, sorry about that. Do you have any data in your head that speaks to the average increase in costs that we've had since Welch has started working on this?
That's a great question. So I think that when we first estimated this to be funded, which I think was 2016, I think we estimated it at $1 million. At 1.2, sure. And so now we're at 4. No, so it's yeah, and I don't think that that's just because we were underestimating it in 2016. It's just simply how crazy costs have gotten.
And I think we did. I think one thing that has come up is that I would say that the full on. It's probably more 3 million. There's an additional $1 million in there because of actions we have had to take with respect to the railroad.
Sure.
There are signalizations, there are signal integrations, there are a number of issues to accommodate Union Pacific, and because of the way we treat railroads in this country, we have to pay for UP's upgrades. The public has to pay for any upgrades that we cause to be made to Union Pacific's infrastructure. So that is the way that works. And is that fair? I'll leave that to you to ask your congressional representatives, if that's fair, but I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, but that's the way it is. So as technology gets better and the railroads wish to do more with what's known as positive train control, PTC, that allows them to make their trains longer. I think the last time I made a note that currently the longest train we have running through Millwood is about 1.9 miles. It's a 2-mile train. And so with that length of train, there's a lot that goes into controlling those signals, controlling those train speeds, things like that. Or, I'm sorry, precision-controlled railroad, not positive. Precision-controlled railroading, which allows them to run those trains from Omaha without a lot of local control or local scheduling or anything like that. But there's a lot of signalization that they require, a lot of feedback they require into their own control system that when an upgrade is made, they take full advantage of the opportunity for the upgrade for municipalities to pay for those upgrades. So, Mr. Sander, you had a question.
Well, the Spokane Transit Authority has just delayed a shift in our bus service until next year, mainly because of lack of STA drivers. But the plan is to have a new route from the community college along Upriver Drive, then going all the way on Argonne. And for us, we'll have a new bus shelter and a bus turnout there at
Right here.
Right there.
Right here. So this area that's going to be right across from this crosswalk, which is basically across from the Rocket, Stockwells, et cetera, on this northbound side, we are putting a STA bus shelter right there. The other STA bus shelter, I believe, is right back here.
Yeah.
So we will have at Liberty, in that Liberty area, we will have shelterization for north and south buses along Argonne. And we're looking at some other changes that we could potentially make right at Trent for bus sheltering there in order to create and increase our ability to accommodate STA buses in a more than just, something more than just simply a bus stop by the side of Argonne. So we're looking at those options as we go along, but transit was included in this, so yeah, we do get a new bus shelter and bus pullout that meets STA's requirements for that.
Yeah, and I guess just to be clear, so our project will be putting in those pads, just in preparation. Ultimately, STA will be coming back and putting in the shelters themselves.
The advantage is with getting this down to the community college, then we can get the new city line that goes from the community college clear down to Brown's Edition, and that eventually will be every 7.5 minutes. But because again, the lack of drivers, it's going to kick off, I think, at 12 minutes. But boy, that'll certainly speed up that last portion of our commute to downtown.
Other questions for Adam at this time? Adam, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Appreciate the update on that. Thank you. So now we'll go to Mr. Ken Van Voorhees with SPVV Landscape Architects to talk about the Millwood Park Plan.
Well, thank you, council, commissioners. This is a great audience. So you have got a lot going on. I commend you. So congratulations on all of it. Just real quick, I'm Ken Van Voorhees. I'm a landscape architect with SPVV Landscape Architects. We've been doing park planning for the region for 28 years. We're getting ready to celebrate our anniversary next month. So we're pretty excited about that. I want to just go and give an update. So I've been working with the Plan Commission on the park process, and then give a little bit of a feedback on what that means for the city, and then answer any questions that you all have relative to the park. I want to state at the beginning, this is a living document. It's very dynamic. It's going to change. It's not set in stone, but we need to have this process in place for you to be competitive on the state if you're going after grants or implementation or however you want to implement the park. So the background is In 2022, we started a process of, we were looking at the park and understanding, you know, what are the deficits, what are the needs? And some of that key pieces are ADA compliance, outdated playground equipment, and just use. How is the park used? So we had kind of a process of doing that. Phase 2, we did a public kickoff meeting where we, if you attended the farmer's market, we had a booth and we presented some concepts, had stickers to stick on things. We gave, I think, things to kids to engage. But we were trying to get what is it the public wants, the citizens of Millwood, to have in their park and what it's to do. What do they want this use of this park? Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful park, but they all change and they're all dynamic. Then in July of that same year, we came back with some more questionnaires, a little bit more information, a little more detail, some pictures of what it could be, got responses back from that. Then under phase 4 side of it, we had the final market where we gave basically the plan that you're gonna see tonight. It's not an unveiling, this is the plan. And in that process, we've made a few modifications from the mayor and the council and the commissioner's comments. But that gave us to the final Labor Day where we presented the park and the plan commission. We had a presentation to them in January, is that when we decided, with the plan commission? Sure. Where we updated all these comments onto a park plan and then received some of their comments. So the goal here, we'll go to the next slide, remind my phone, get ahead. If you want to look at some of the data on who came to the markets, who gave input, that's what these next few slides are about. I don't think we need to go through them in depth unless people have questions about it. But just to give you an idea of sampling, do you like movies in the park? Do you want a picnic shelter or barbecues? The playground obviously was one of the high points of all the people that were giving us comments back. Go to the next one. And then how often, where were you from? Those were the kind of questions that we had in our questionnaire. So again, this is the data. This is what validates that it's a public process. It isn't just something we came up with because we like to draw pictures. So go ahead and go to the next one. That's the last one. Do we have the park plan then? So with that, we presented this, and like I said before, we presented it to the Parks Commission, or excuse me, the Plan Commission. Got to get this right. The Plan Commission talked about some of the adjustments, had some comments back. I think council had a chance to kind of take a look at that. Generally, the way this works, if you're going to be competitive with the state as a funding agent, in this case, it's called the Recreation and Conservation Office. They are the distributor of money for outdoor activities. It can be recreation as far as athletics. It can be trails. It can be all the things that are relative to getting outside and using public lands. To be competitive, you have to have a process. You have to go through and ask people what they want. You need to categorize that information. That's why this background is so important. So now if Christine and the council decide they want to chase after some of those grant funds, they then have that background information and you're much more competitive against the state, other members of the state. So the big picture is the state receives money from the feds, they distribute it to the local governments, and that's kind of how it all trickles in to create this Recreation and Conservation Office. With that, on the park, I know it's a little small, but the key pieces are we centrally located a splash pad and playground. The basketball courts, because it was and pickleball and basically court activity, we're not saying exactly what they are, but it's in the northwest corner. The central core piece is kind of the gathering space. I don't want to say kind of, it is the gathering space with the idea that we've got some elevation change, creates a landing platform. It's a place to address groups. It's a place to set up the movie theater and have seating on the steps and really present kind of this, I'm going to call it the courtyard of the park, the centerpiece, the real active area where everybody comes in and uses that space. The farmer's market in our minds is just off of that, but it's part of that. There's a walking loop that goes around the open area, which would house the farmer's market or car shows or whatever people want to have. There's that space in the middle that's multifunctional. It could be anything, just basically lawn area that you have today, only it's organized in such a way that it allows other options. So some of the improvements might be power. We included an additional picnic shelter, a replacement to the picnic shelter, and an additional restroom on that far corner because of its connection to the Millwood Trail. That's a key piece. The nice thing about this park is it's really access from all kinds, whether it's motor vehicles, walking, biking. It's really a great city core piece. So it's situated ideal for your community, and so we think obviously you love it, and now we just need to look at it in the future and how it can best serve you as the citizens. We created some diagrams just to illustrate, because sometimes plan views are really hard to read, but it kind of gives you an idea. Splash pad in the fountain, or let's say, splash pads are where it's going. The splash pool is a challenge. It's one of the only wading pools in the area, but with that, there's a risk. And the risk is enough that's why you see municipalities leaning into the splash pads. It's just too risky having the standing body of water, and too costly, I'll be honest with you. Most communities just can't afford it. Can't afford lifeguards, can't afford all the things that go in with the body of water, et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, we're trying to look in the future at how this could be sustainable, how it can provide the citizens the things that they want and told us. And at the end of the day, it's a vision. So again, a living document. It's going to change depending on funding and what you all want to do. So this is, we hope, is that inspiration to say, you know what, we're going to tackle this project, portion of it this year. It's going to be done in phases. I can almost guarantee it. I've yet to see a full park get built the first time out of the chute. There's just the way the industry is and the way it works. What other highlights do we have, Christina, that you recall? It was go ahead.
The only other things that I just wanted to point out, not easily visible necessarily on the screen. We do have this larger at the end of the hall, but one of the things that the Planning Commission took some time with and did some information gathering was on whether or not folks in the community were interested in maybe a theme. And so you can see at the bottom of the screen there, Ken provided the feedback that we got was primarily railroad is what people thought of as far as park theme. And so there is some themed play equipment there, splash pad and playground equipment. And then the other big things that we heard, and I don't want to talk about this too much because our Planning Commission Chair will be speaking on this in just a little bit, but lots of feedback for pickleball and car shows and other events. So when you see that large court area and that path along the field there on the east side of the park that would accommodate things like car shows or food trucks, those were big items that we heard from the community when we were gathering information in the park.
Any other comments, Ken? Anything like that?
Just want to comment that overall, this was a great process. The community came out in the meetings, in the markets, and it was just very fun to see young and old really give us input and just have a passion. So I just want to thank Christine and the commission actually for your time. Where's that?
Oh, that's an honor of you, that's right, yeah.
Man, that was good.
And that will be our first concert. Strike that from the record.
We planned that, we made community.
What the hell are you doing?
I think there was a sign from God.
It's Ken's walk-off music.
That's right.
No, it should be his walk-up music. What are we doing?
Okay, so the mouse is not working, but let me just say for the edification of the audience, that's not the most embarrassing thing I've ever done at a council meeting.
We can all attest to that. That's what it all sound like, nobody's around.
I don't know how you beat that one, that was good.
All right, so, wow. Questions for Ken after that? Any questions for Ken?
It's your park, I'm here.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight, Mr. Van Voorhees. We appreciate it, and so I'm sure we'll hear some about this from our Planning Commission. So now let's take it to Ms. Rose Honey from the West Valley High School Art Department to discuss the Millwood mural proposals.
Rose, hold on just 1 second, please.
Holding.
My
music. I really hope you celebrate my students at the end like that.
I'll sing the fight song. I still know it. Class of 95.
Well, thank you for being here today and taking your time to listen to us and just beautifying Millwood in general. Tonight, what we want to talk about is proposing a historic mural for Millwood. So my amazing students, advanced students of art and design, have been working with a new technology, which is the iPad and illustration applications. So not only have they been learning about the history of Millwood, but they've also been learning a new tech tool. So I'm very proud of them. So thank you again for your time tonight. And I'm excited to show you their amazing art on Millwood.
Nothing's working. I don't know what the deal is.
Miss Honey, can you clarify where this is going to go, or is this going to come?
I was, yeah, I have a slide. Sorry. This is,
Thanks for the question.
okay, sorry. So just a quick, just a little background. In researching community development and revitalization, one of the things that I've learned is that murals are a big catalyst for communities that are looking for revitalization. And so with that in mind, last year I contacted, or had Paul contact, the Millwood Masonic Temple to gauge whether or not they would be willing to allow us to place something on their building. Originally, we had planned to do it on the north side of the building, but the Temple Association is now hoping to open up those windows and do some things that are going to be really great. So they've graciously offered us this side of the building that you can see when you are headed northbound on Argonne. At that time, once I had their buy-in, I contacted Miss Honey, and she has been working with her students now for a couple of quarters on this. So a couple of weeks ago, we received, I think, around a dozen proposals. We've narrowed it down to the 4 that you're going to see tonight, feeling like these best represented what we were looking for. And I'm very excited. I'm very impressed. I'm very excited. I think you will be impressed when you see what they've done. So I'll just go ahead. I have the 4 each on a slide, and we'll just let the students talk about what they did.
Perfect. First up, we have our 2 friends, Caitlin and Mads.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Shimabakuro, and this is Maddie Clardy. We're juniors at West Valley High School, and the theme of our mural is the community of historic Millwood. The purpose of our wall art is to be inviting for people that visit and to create pride for people who live and work in our neighborhood. In our mural, the elements we chose to highlight are the iconic landmarks of Millwood. We included the paper mill, the Corner Door Cafe, the water tower, the river and bridge, and the railroad.
Because Millwood was established in 1927, we decided to incorporate cars and clothing from that era. To invite the viewer in, we used the artistic technique of leading lines with the railroad and the river to draw the viewer's eyes to the Welcome to Historic Millwood sign and to the people, because we believe that the people in the community is one of the most important parts of Millwood. Caitlin and I grew up in the West Valley School District, and we would be honored to have our mural represent historic Millwood. Thank you.
All right, up next we have Anya and Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela Bussey.
I'm Anya Redman.
And when creating our mural, we took inspiration from like the map of Millwood. If you look it up, you'll see this geometrical shape.
Yeah, we have historic brick houses, tree-lined boulevards.
The cherished rosebush house and our old railroad tracks. And of course, the water tower that was designed by another West Valley student.
And Millwood's namesake and origin, the Inland Empire Paper Mill.
If you guys have any questions, we kept it kind of short and sweet.
Good job.
All right, up next we have our friend Adalia.
Okay. As I said, my name is Adalia Betts. I'm also a junior at West Valley High School. My mural, while involving seemingly simple elements, I believe demonstrates the features of the city that come to mind when people think of Millwood. I've included our famous paper mill, the Argonne Bridge, water tower, Spokane River, and the railway. I believe cohesively together in a simplistic design that isn't too complicated to read, but at least a little bit. Oh, sorry. The colors I used were meant to stand out and draw the viewers in so that we can truly recognize what makes Millwood memorable as a whole, so that we don't forget the origins from which it started from. And I believe it's a distinctive piece that preserves the attributes of Millwood while guiding it more towards modern designs as we advance.
All right, and next we have Annika.
Hello, I'm Annika Hansen. I'm a sophomore at West Valley High School, and for my design, I, of course, wanted to include the paper mill, which is such a fundamental part of the founding of Millwood, and I wanted to create a sense of community with the people in front, and I also wanted to include bright colors, bold colors that just felt alive, and because of the 1920s kind of time period when Millwood was founded, I tried to include the clothing and cars from that era as well. And yeah, I just wanted to make it feel cohesive, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, just thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to the students. Thank you for being here tonight. This has been a fun project. We will be coming back to the city council to discuss the 4 designs. The plan at this time is that we will have the mural drawn on material that will be affixed to the side of the building, so that if at any time it needs to be moved or something like that, that the city can take that back. And I think we'll be I've spoken a little bit with Miss Honey about that material, and we'll be working together to figure out the best way to accomplish that. But anyway, glad to have them here tonight and thankful for their work.
Thank you very much. That will be an exciting addition when we get to that stage. So as Christina said, this will be coming back to council for further consideration. So that concludes our presentations tonight. If there are folks that do need to head out, this is a good time to do it. Yeah, I know. So this gets to our reports. So our first group that we would ask to have a report would be from the Millwood Planning Commission. I think that'll be Mr. Ankeny, please.
Well, before I welcome, just in case any of those students are still here, I'm impressed. There is hope for our future. You know, I work with a lot of high school students, and what their artwork was phenomenal. So, well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the Planning Commission, members of the Historic Preservation Commission, the Beautification and Tree Board, and concerned citizens. As Mayor Freeman said, my name is Mike Ankney, and I am the chairman of the Millwood Planning Commission. As chairman of the Planning Commission, I respectfully submit the following report. Over the last few years, the Planning Commission has been very busy. A few of the items we've been working on are complete review and updates of the zoning code, the comprehensive plan, and the shoreline management plan. We've held many meetings to discuss these topics, solicited public comments, worked with our consultants, and ended up with codes and plans that are current, they're relevant, and I believe will be the basis for the future of Millwood. Another item that was completed that took quite some time and many hours was a complete update of the city's permitted use matrix. The work that was completed on that has made the building permit application process more user-friendly and understandable. At this time, I'd like to thank Christina for all of her hard work on that permitted use matrix. It would not have been completed without her dedication to getting it done. We held several planning commission meetings in the Millwood Park over the course of COVID and last summer. These outdoor meetings offered the public a unique perspective as to what the role of a planning commission is, and was a great way to get public opinion and comment of what the users of the city facilities would like to see. We also participated in the city booths at the farmer markets and Millwood Days. Once again, these were very informative and a great way to get some feedback and ideas of what the public thinks Millwood should look like. It was at these outreach events that we were able to get public comments, concerns, and ideas of what users of the park wanted in the park, as was just presented a few minutes ago. Some of those ideas were, one that was really a hot topic was pickleball courts. They like their car shows, they like their movies, basketball is still a favorite, and just a few other things that they wanted to see in there. Obviously, continuation of the farmer's market at the park was a huge deal also. Let's see. Some items that were also discussed at those were as to what playground equipment and other amenities were desired in the park. And then one thing that we also pointed out was just part of this process, we have to look at risk mitigation also. So make sure that the city's protected from anything that may do harm there. So over the course of the last few years, we've had a few changes in the members of the Planning Commission. Currently, the commission is made up of myself as chairman, longtime member Bobby Beasy, Savannah Wu, Jay Molitor, and Bill Rickard, and I'm happy to say that we have a full commission. At this time, though, I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank former Chairman Kelly Stravens for his many years of service as the chairman of the Planning Commission. Your dedication to the commission over the years is missed, but we also want to congratulate you on your appointment to the City Council. One of the things we're encouraging is that the city, and I'm going off script a little bit here, over the presentations that we just had, one of the things I strongly want to encourage the city to do is hire a grant writer. There is obviously a whole lot of money out there. As a person who is a grant writer, I'm not putting my name in for the job, but I write a lot of grants. I know there's a lot of funding streams out there, and having a good grant writer will pay huge dividends. Another thing to consider when you were talking about the Argonne project and the cost upgrades that are going on there, currently in the Washington State Legislature, there is a whole lot of proposed bills that are going to drive construction costs up, so just be aware of that. Let's see. So hiring the grant writer to seek out funding for the Millwood Park project and the other things. So the Planning Commission is currently looking at a couple different ideas that have been presented and looking at for public input so we can move the park plan forward. Obviously, regardless of what we submit to the council, funding will always be a huge obstacle. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Christina, and even though she's not here, Lisa, for their hours of service to the Planning Commission by not only attending our meetings and taking great notes and producing the agendas and the minutes that help our meetings flow. Kudos to you. And before I wrap up and ask for any questions, I have a couple of questions for the City Council. What might be some things or ideas you would like the Planning Commission to work on and/or accomplish and/or consider in the next 12 months? And then thinking outside of the box, the next 5 years. I'm open for any questions and comments you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Questions from the council for our planning commission? First of all, I want to say to the planning commission, you're welcome for us taking Mr. Stravens away from you. So that's
Well, I was going to mention that, so.
You owe us one.
Second, I do want to thank the members, yourself and the members of the planning commission. You guys have you folks have put in a lot of hard work, and you've got a lot accomplished. And acting as the body that does the fact-finding for some of the council's proposals, it is appreciated the level of effort with public interaction that you folks have put in doing that. That's not always may not always be a joyful experience. That should go noted that not only has been done, but has been done very well. So thank you. And I do think, Mike, your comment regarding suggestions from the council or providing some directions for the council, not only from the council to the commission on near-term and long-term ideas of what needs to be done. I think that's something that we should get in front of the council and actually give the members time to consider, but then come up with some sort of direction or some sort of planning document for the council, for the commission to have, so you know what your next workload is coming down. I know that there's going to be some routine things that need to be tackled with some stuff. I think.
Yes, I think we have a few miscellaneous code amendments, things of that nature, but largely with the completion of the park plan, our schedule is opening up. So we would appreciate direction from the council. And since I'm already running my mouth, I just want to thank the Planning Commission. As I said to Mike when we were discussing his presentation here tonight, the Planning Commission doesn't get to roll out fancy produced videos or tree management plans. They roll out stuff like zoning codes, which aren't, super flashy. So the work that they've done on all of our codes has been, is admirable. And manning those farmers market booths in August when it's 102 degrees outside in the shade is not an easy task. So I thank them for their hard work.
So, Mr. Sander.
Well, I'd like to just echo your comments. The Planning Commission has certainly been busy over the last few years, and some of those are very complicated. I've talked to Christine about the shorelines and thing in particular. I mean, it's not like we're in a floodplain, right. But still all that other stuff is there. So it's very complicated, and I think you've set a high bar for doing everything possible to get public input. And I think your time at the farmer's market, the days, the Millwood days, I mean, people can't ask for more. They've had their opportunities. If they're going to have a concern, you've been there. Right. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks
to the entire commission.
So I think a takeaway from the council is over the next month or two, I would ask you to start thinking about some ideas, given the repertoire of things that Planning Commission has taken on. It seems like as long as it's in their wheelhouse, they can accomplish it. So if there is stuff that comes to mind, let's bring it forward to the council and get it tasked back to Planning Commission. Any questions from any of our other members out there for Planning Commission or anything like that? We thank you for being here. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, and this completes the report from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. So that will bring us to historic preservation, which Annie's going to give it looks like. So Ms. Oakes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, at a certain point, they're going to show one of their videos. The volume was real loud. I don't know if you have control of that.
Okay.
You let me know when we're ready, and
All right.
I will adjust that.
We'll cue you. Well, thank you for this opportunity to share with you some of our many activities that we've completed over the last 7 years. I promised I'd keep this to 10 minutes, so if I start talking really fast, you'll know that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so which is the forward, Christina? Like that? The right? Nope.
Try the other way.
The left, the other right. Okay. Is there more? There we go. So I'm Annie Oakes, for those of you who don't know me. We have Christine Major, our chair, is back there. Barbara St. Clair is over here, a 3-generation resident of Millwood. And our original members were Vicki Nacarado and Bobby Beasy. They went on to do other things, and so now we're Colleen Kirsten, who is here, and Alex Brennan, our new members. I just wanted to give you an overview of what we've accomplished. We've been in existence since 2014. It's hard to believe it's coming up on 10 years. But this is a few things that we're going to talk about, including our 2 grants that total $16,000, which we're pretty proud of those. So we were authorized in 2014 by the Code of Ordinances, and the language that this is just a very brief summary of everything we're supposed to do, to identify and actively encourage the conservation of the city's historic resources by initiating and maintaining a register of historic places and reviewing proposed changes to registered properties, to raise community awareness of the history and historic resources, and to serve as the primary resource in matters of history and historic planning and preservation. So a couple of things that happened when we started this. I realized that a lot of people don't think their homes are historic if they're not, 3-story Victorian homes. But really, the way we define it is more than 50 years old. One of the first things we had was a workshop by Ernie Robison, who is he's an architect who specializes in preserving historic elements in homes or incorporating historic elements into homes. And as much as I love HGTV, I also am afraid of things being torn down and gutted and all the historic elements lost. So he kind of taught us that there are a lot of elements of historic homes that are actually energy efficient, they're cost efficient. You don't need to tear everything down. And you remember that Move That Bus show? We don't need to do that necessarily. So our first grant was for $10,000 because we're all in different professions. We all had jobs. Our time is very limited, and we didn't really know how to go about listing homes on the register or getting really what we were doing. So we did some due diligence and hired. The grant went to Northwest Vernacular, who trained us over 9 or 10 meetings to how to deal with the nuts and bolts of being a historic preservation commission. And mostly it was to prepare us to help the public list homes on the historic register. They also provided us with many, many, many resources that are available on the thumb drive that Christina has right there on lots of topics in historic preservation that we were able to incorporate into some of our materials. So our first nominations were One Residence, the Rosebush House, owned by Alan Vicky Nacarado, and the Harsh Building, which was it's now Kodiak Construction and was the office of Dr. Pierce for many, many years. I think there's still some people who knew Dr. Pierce and were treated by him as children, and that he is the father of Ann Pierce Aslan, who is a frequent visitor to the Historic Preservation Commission, and made the millwoodhistory.org website for us. So we did got the ball rolling. Our second grant happened as a result of COVID, actually. As you all know, the building was off limits. We had some historic resources that no one could see. So the idea came about, wouldn't it be great if on the website we had videos that could somehow communicate all the different elements of the historic preservation efforts in Millwood. So we did our due diligence. We put out a bid and wound up working with Tribe Media. And the idea was that we would put, did I do that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I didn't think I did. some way to make the residents aware of our efforts and what the opportunities that were available. So this is one of the videos. There are 3 of them. If you haven't watched them, it's really worth your time. This one's about, if you can start it at 5 seconds in, this is about a little under 4 minutes. Let's go ahead and you'll see Commissioner Deasy starring in a starring role.
There are 3 settlers in Millwood that are probably the most pivotal in our history. One is the Woodards, and then we have Stegner's family, and then the Salmon family. The Woodards were important in getting the railroad to come through where the railroad is located in Millwood. They named the railroad station there Woodard Station. So it's the original name of this area was Woodard Station. In about 1903, the Coeur d'Alene Spokane Railroad Company decided it was going to put an electric rail line between Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. The Woodards talked them into putting it through what eventually became Millwood. Coincidentally, W.A. Brazo was traveling from Wisconsin to visit the Alaska-Yukon Pacific Exposition. He was getting close to Spokane on the train, and he picked up a newspaper, and it said something about a $1 million paper mill that was going to be built in the Spokane Valley. So he thought he'd get off and take a look. And then the original paper mill just never happened, it fell apart. So he went back and talked to his company, the Nakusa Edwards Paper Company in Wisconsin, and talked them into putting a paper mill there. So they started construction in 1910. With the paper mill being built and businesses starting to crop up, they decided they wanted a name other than Woodard Station. They wanted a name that would advertise the mill. So Mr. Brazo went to D.C. Corbin, who's big in Spokane history and was very interested in the valley, and he came up with the idea of, what if you call it Millwood? You can use the wood from Woodard Station and mill from the mill. When they platted the main town site, which later became the Millwood Historic District, they called it Millwood. But there was this problem of you had this big business, but there wasn't much of any place for people to live. There's one newspaper article that said some people were even staying in tents. So the paper mill started thinking maybe they could help the situation. By the spring of 1923, they came up with this amazing idea. They established a revolving home loan fund where they could lend money to their employees to build their own house on lots that they bought at a reasonable price from the paper mill. At this time, you didn't have any FHA, so financing was a huge thing, and a huge thing that got in the way of people building houses. So this was big. So they offered the lots for sale. They had pattern books at the mill, so you could go pick out your pattern of what style house you liked. They actually built rails across Oregon from the paper mill into the area and brought in a steam shovel. They used the steam shovel to dig basements and to put in the water and sewer. That first year, 1923, 9 homes were built. At least 7 more were built in 1926, and then there was a last group built in 1928. And that's the majority of the homes that are in what is now the National Historic Register District.
So we didn't intend for all the residents of Millwood to be able to hear the video, but that will, I'm sure that'll draw some attention. You noticed, I don't know if you could see while the video was going on, because it was fairly smooth, but they had drone footage, close-ups.
Homeowners, look, we need to talk. Solar works.
Okay. Drone footage and close-ups and inserting photographs and everything that were part of her process. They were really a joy to work with. Okay. Next. So another accomplishment that we just completed was to update the historic resource book, which was a compilation of historic preservation resources from other cities that have also dealt with this, including cities that have preservation issues that go back 200 years longer than ours do. So mostly our concern is in keeping the character of the neighborhood. We're not going to come in your backyard or in your house and tell you you can't have a new refrigerator or anything that invasive, but just to preserve the appearance of the home in the front that's visible from the street. So things like porches, windows, windows especially are a hot topic, masonry roofs and so forth. So in the glossary at the end of the book, I'm especially proud of this because, Christina, can you hover over dormer, the word dormer? We have live links to these, so you can click on that. Don't do it, but you could click on it, and you would find out way more about dormers than you ever wanted to know. And then there's a definition in the middle, and then a photo or a drawing, which we hope to replace with actual photos of dormers in Millwood at some point. Another project that's ongoing is our recognition of homes that are turning 100 years old. We've been interacting with people whose homes are getting older or who have contacted us. Nacarados have one. I think there are three more people who have them in their windows. So that's going to be increasingly, as you saw from the video, there are properties turning 100 right along in the next few years. Oh, whoops. Too fast. Okay. Oh, did you do that? Are we fighting with control? We're fine. Okay, you go. Okay. So those are our past and ongoing projects. Our future projects are, we'd really like to have a student intern sit on the committee, in on the committee meetings, maybe somebody who's working on a senior capstone, someone maybe who could take pictures of the dormers around Millwood and the other architectural features. We have quite a bit more footage from the Tribe Media shootings, the B-rolls and the A-roll of the interviews. So we're hoping to talk to them about producing a couple more videos. We want to continue to add properties to the Millwood Historic Register. Also, every time we're at the every time we have a presence at the farmer's market, people stop and say, well, my grandma lived in such and such a house, or we're assigning Alex, we're collecting egg cartons and then assigning Alex the job of building a little booth a little sound booth so we can go in and record at the farmer's market just to keep these stories preserved. May is Historic Preservation Month, so that's coming up. And we hope to have some activity going then. And then also, we were talking about 2024 and then leaning into 2025. Well, just a couple years later is our centennial of Millwood as a city, October 26, 2027. So we want to have something in mind for that. So that's basically all I have for you. I do have one more thing. The drawings, the murals are fantastic. I think we can all agree. All the creativity and the imagination and the insight and the historical appreciation that went into them. Our concern is where they would go and the way in which they would be installed, because that is a historic preservation issue. So without taking any more time, I just wanted to leave these with you, not only for this project, but people who are decision makers of any kind. This would be good to know about one of our most vulnerable historical elements, surprisingly, is brick. So for this project or future projects, I wanted to just leave that with you and just food for thought. So I don't have any more knowledge, so there's no point in asking me any questions. But everyone wants to go, so I'm going to go sit down now.
Well, thank you, Annie, for that presentation, and I did want to say thank you very much to Chris and Barbara and other members of the former members of the Historic Preservation Commission. Your work has been outstanding. I know that occasionally there's been some other some concerns, and I think, Annie, you talked about that. You're not coming in to tell people what to do. You're trying to foster a sense of participation. And I think that's the biggest success that we can have in Millwood is showing folks that they live in a historic area and that preservation for those elements is a good thing, and that they should. It's a gift that you live in those places. Although living in one of them, I would tend to disagree occasionally, but and homes like that are few and far between nowadays, and they deserve to be preserved. So thank you very much for that. And so lastly, we have our beautification and tree board. And so I'm not sure who's going to leap up to give that presentation, if anyone. Oh, well, Paul.
Yeah, it's going to be me.
No. Podium.
Are you want him to?
Yeah.
Welcome to your last meeting.
Yeah, come on. We all get to stare at you. Come on, get up in front of the podium.
Cue the music. Oh. Got rock music here. Got that retirement shirt on? I do. Going to be rocking it all week. So. Smell by the end of the week. Yeah. No, I got a different one for every day. Oh yeah. I'm prepared. Well, not for this, but I am prepared for retirement. Let's put it that way. So, as you know, our beautification and tree board received a grant last year for $20,000 from the Department of Natural Resources to do a tree inventory and a tree management plan, which Jim went through pretty thoroughly, and he's done it several times. We just received the management plan today, so we'll be going over that. We've got a meeting coming up next Monday night, so you're all welcome to that as well. It's at 5:30 right here at the City Hall, and we'll be reviewing the management plan. It's a fairly lengthy document, so hopefully I'll be sending that up to you tomorrow for our board members to review, and then staff will be reviewing it as well, and we'll bring some comments to the meeting on Monday night, and then at some point we will have a comment period. So we'll also put it on the website as well, so it'll be available for other people to review. And like I said, it's a lengthy document, so it's going to take a little bit of time to go through that and just verify that, we do a comparison as to what our current resolution states and what the recommendations from Jim are in our management plan and the budget. So there'll be after we've done our process through the board, they'll be coming back to you, to the council, to make those recommendations, to update the resolution, to reflect that, so that we can maintain those trees that we have and future plantings that we have scheduled as well. And then that's going to take a little bit of time, but they'll get through it. But we would like to get that incorporated. Oh, the other thing was the budget. So, as you all heard, this project is going to take some money. So we'll be preparing what the schedule is. We know it's going to take time, just like all of our projects, the park plan, the Argonne project. They all take time and planning, and sometimes you have to phase these things in. So we'll get the budget prepared for the 2024 era. The other thing we have is the Arbor Day celebration. They'll be coming up in April, and so we'll be talking about that at the Monday night meeting, and then we'll let everybody know when and where we're planning on doing the Arbor Day celebration. So that's about all I have. I don't know if any of our board members. I do want to acknowledge our board members because Vicki Nacarado, Debbie Langer, and Charlie Peterson have been on this board since its inception. So yes, which I believe was around 2011 is when, I know it's when they did I think that's when they formed, because they ended up getting a grant a long time ago for the original tree inventory. In order to do that, they had to have a tree board. So these have been dedicated citizens and board members for quite some time. And they do have a pretty good project ahead of them to go through this. And so I'm sure they'd appreciate anybody that has an interest in being on the beautification and tree board to come to the meetings, or even maybe even apply for one of the positions. So for me, it's just been an honor I kind of inherited this from Tom Richardson when he retired. And so I'm passing that torch on to Daniel and to Kyle. And but no, it's been great to work with all of you and actually everybody on all of the boards and commissions for City of Millwood. So thank you very much, and Christina, thank you for making the meeting so interesting.
Listen, I was going to queue up another one bites the dust. I was going to queue up another one bites the dust, but I was afraid that I would set it off wrong, so, yeah.
You would have been my hero.
So that concludes our reports from our commissions and boards. And are there any last questions from the council before we adjourn this out? So I do want to say thank you to the tree board. This last bit of effort, I think, will, I was going to say bear some fruit, but that's bad. I think this is a really good step forward, and I would say to the rest of us in the audience that if you know anybody who could assist those three members on that board, it could get a little busy for them here in the future, particularly with education and things like that as we begin adjusting resolutions and looking at some ways to preserve some things and some community outreach, stuff like that. That might even actually take some things like what Tribe Media did for historic preservation, some educational videos or some things like that to let folks in the community know how to care for their trees and then what we're actually doing here. But again, I will just say on behalf of everybody who sits on this side of the horseshoe today, thank you very much for all of your efforts. Thank you for participating. Thank you for sticking with this through COVID and everything else that goes on. It's not fun to be a public servant these days in any capacity. And so I really appreciate and respect the folks out here that come in on a monthly basis and take extra time and do this job. It's what makes our form of government work and what makes Millwood special to be here. So thank you all very much. And again, would urge anyone with an interest to come tomorrow and celebrate Paul and celebrate his next steps in his life. Thank you all. And we'll have to do this again. These meetings are great, and I think we forget about how good it is to kind of get people all in the same room sometimes. So, Christina, you want to adjourn the boards, and then we'll adjourn council?
I'll adjourn the special meeting of the Millwood Beautification and Tree Board at 7:51 p.m. Adjourn the special meeting of the Millwood Historic Preservation Commission at 7:51 p.m. Adjourn the special meeting of the Millwood Planning Commission at 7:51 p.m.
So at this time, if there's no further business, well, there can't be any further business. So at this time, I'd be looking for a motion from the council to adjourn the special meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.